Record. Yep. So welcome to Development Economics Workshop or Workshop on Development Economics. Similar. Your instructor will be Pak Gumilang and me, Amanda. This slide is made by Pak Gumilang, so that's why his name is written on the slide. So in this course, Development Economics Workshop will focus on the impact evaluation in development economics. Okay, so if you remember in last year in development economics 1, we talked a lot about theory. In this course, we will talk more about the practice. Okay, so that's why impact evaluation. And the topics included in this course is going to be education, health, information, governance, and tobacco economics. Pak Gumilang and I, we will take turns to go to class. So in some topics like education and the tobacco economics, it's going to be handled by Pak Gumilang because he is an expert in those topics. Okay, and then in this course, our goals is to understand how households, particularly the poor, make decisions given their constraint. So, well, economics is all about decision, right? How we make decision despite of the constraints. And we will also review policies or programs implemented by governments or international organizations in developing countries. What we are going to concern about is, do the programs have impacts on the outcome of interest, and how do the programs impact the outcomes? Okay. And then we will also map the existing policy in Indonesia. In the third point, actually, it's going to be mostly you who's going to map the existing policy in Indonesia, because it's going to be part of the assignments. Okay. And then the last one, we're going to identify potential solutions for the problems faced by partners. Okay. In the syllabus, there are some recommended readings, books, and also some papers, PDF that you can download. You can do it after class if you want. And these are some recommended readings. We have the handbook in field of handbook of field experiment by Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo. I think this one is free, you can download it. And also we have Poor Economics. We have read this, right, during development 1. So I think you are already familiar with this book. And then we also have this book, the handbook on impact evaluation, and also the impact evaluation in practice. Okay. Okay, so what's the difference between this class and last year when you take development 1? This is going to be based on projects. So there will be no exams in this class. You will not have UTS, you will not have UAS, but you will have projects at the end of the semester. You will have 2 projects. So not only 1, but 2 projects to be completed by the end of the semester. So these are 3 options, and you can choose 2. You can choose needs assessment report, or literature review, or undergraduate thesis proposal. Okay, and the topic of these projects is going to be development economics, yeah, like health, education, what I have mentioned before, education, health, information, governance, and tobacco economics. But if you have a different idea, like topics outside this, you can tell me, and maybe we will talk about it if it's suitable for this course or not. Okay. So you have to choose 2 out of these 3, and then you will have to report progress every week. Well, not every week, maybe bi-weekly. We'll talk about it later. But at the end of the semester, you have to complete 2 of these 3 options. I will talk about each of the project. So the first one is the needs assessment report. What is it? So basically, in this kind of report, students identify the determinants of developmental issue in Indonesia. For example, like stunting, child marriage, corruption, low level of vaccination, or whatever it is that you want. And then students should identify the determinants of an issue from both demand and supply side. So based on the problem that you choose, the issue that you choose, you have to identify the determinants in the demand side and the supply side. So what's the problem with the demand side? What's the problem with the supply side? Okay. And then students should also identify interventions or policies that have been implemented. Okay, so have been implemented, yeah, in Indonesia for the issue. So like, for example, with the stunting, the government has already have maybe BLT or something. Then you try to identify the policy, and then you can explain how the policy works, etc. And then students should also identify the intervention or policy that have been conducted in other country. So the policies in other countries. So you can make a comparison. And then the last one, the students must propose an intervention. So you propose your intervention to address the issue and construct a theory of change for the proposed intervention. Okay, so it's like a report. So in this report, you will identify problem, and then you will identify identify the demand side and the supply side of the problem, and then you identify what are the intervention that has been done in Indonesia, and then you compare it to the intervention in other country, and then you propose your idea for intervention by explaining the theory of change. Okay, it's a pretty solid report here. In this part, you have question? Not yet. Okay, I will go to the next project. The second one is the critical review of the literature. So you will do a lot of desk study in here. So literature review is a type of critical review which you analyze and evaluate many sources on a specific topic. So like, for example, you like the topic of health economics, for example, in the topic of HIV. So you will look for sources, paper, report, or whatever it is, literature that you can find. And then you will analyze and evaluate those sources. And then student should provide an overview of major challenge related to the particular development issue. For example, if you choose the topic HIV, like I said, based on your literature review, you must be able to identify the challenge related to the topic. Okay, and then students should map studies and policy reports conducted for the topics. So if you ever written a paper, you will do literature review, right? Before you do your analysis. So basically that's what you're going to do here. And then you're going to map all of the studies that you have read. You can categorize it based on different category. Like for example, with the HIV, you can categorize it. Policy A is in this category, policy B in this category B, or based on the severeness of the problems. It in HIV in different continent, for example, and things like that. And then for each study and policy report, students should critically review. So you must review this part, the methodology, the quality of the methodology and findings, the potential bias, and the question that are missing in the literature review for a future research. Okay, so this is the critical review of the literature. Okay, and the last one is undergraduate thesis proposal. So if you like development economics, if you are interested in development economics, and if you consider to write an undergraduate thesis in the topic of development economics, well, this is your time to write your thesis proposal. So like you write a thesis proposal and you pass this course. So like 2-in-1, right? So you choose the topics on development economics and you just write your proposal, and you should discuss following points: motivation, literature review, research question and contribution to the literature, methodology and data, and timeline. So you don't need to have the result or analysis or findings in this proposal. You just need to write down your motivation, your literature review, research question and contribution, methodology that you're going to use, and the potential data that you're going to gather, and then the timeline. So like when are you going to execute the methodology, and where are you going to start your analysis. But the result and findings is not required in here. Okay, so those are the 3 projects that you can choose. You can choose 2 out of 3. It's up to you which one, which 2 it is that you choose. Regarding the projects, you have any question or concern?
Miss, may I have a
Yes.
question?
Yeah, please.
Regarding the this slide that you show, it says there is a timeline included in the proposal. Can you please elaborate what does it mean by the timeline, Miss?
Okay. Thank you. You have other question before I answer, maybe? Okay, if not, I will break down the timeline. So basically, this is the timeline. You know, imagine that you're going to write your scriptsy, and you will have a timeline. When are you going to finish your scriptsy or your thesis? And then you will break down the timeline. Like, for example, if you start in August, so this is basically if you start, and then after you, sorry, for example, if you want to start to do your thesis in August, and then you want to finish by, let's say, December, for example. So between August and December, you have to break down. When are you going to write your introduction? When are you going to finish your literature review? When are you going to develop your research question? When are you going to choose your methodology? When are you going to gather the data? And when are you going to start your analysis? And then when are you going to finish everything? So basically that's the timeline that I mean in here. Breakdown. Okay, break down each part. Actually, why we include timeline in this undergraduate thesis proposal, it's to help you if you really are going to use this proposal for your real thesis. So if you have this timeline here, then it will help you. If you stick to it, you will finish on time. So it doesn't have to be very complex. It doesn't have to be very overly detailed. It's just something that you can stick with. So just like you choose when you're going to start, when you're going to finish, and then break down for the each part. When you're going to write down this part, write down this part, and finish this part. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, Miss. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other question? Okay, if you have, if you don't have any question during in the meantime, it's okay. So regarding the project, students, you must identify and choose the topic starting week 1. So after this course finish, I want you to choose the topics that you want for your projects. Oh yeah, when I say you have to choose 2 projects out of 3, those 2 projects must have the same topics. So if you choose health economics topics, and then you choose the report and then the critical review of the literature, then both of those projects must in the same topic. Okay. And then the students will report the chosen topic at the end of week 1. What I mean by this is you have to report to me before August 27. Okay, because the week 2 is going to start at August 27. So please report to me what topic that you choose before August 27. Okay. There will be weekly assignments to guide students to progress. So each week you will have assignment, and in those assignment, it will guide you to do your projects. So make sure that every week you have progress in your project, and by the end of the semester, your project is finished. Okay. So the assignment will be uploaded in semester, and please pay attention to the deadline and make sure you do not miss the deadline. Okay. I haven't breakdown this. I hope you can submit your assignment in PDF format, yeah, not MS Word, because with MS Word sometimes it will ruin the format. So please send it in PDF format. And I have no naming rules, so you can name it whatever. I don't have the format of the name or whatever. It's up to you. Just submit it in PDF format. Okay, and do not miss the deadline. And then for this project, I recommend the students to work individually. However, a group of at most 2 students are welcome. So you have, I think we have 10 people here, right? We have 10 students. It's up to you. If you choose to work individually, it's okay. If you choose to do it in group, then at most it has to be 2 students. Okay, more than 2 students, I can accept. So it's up to you. You decide it yourself. And if you do decide to work in group, then each group should assign a group coordinator. And then the group coordinator submit the group to Amanda's email tomorrow. Okay. Actually, please submit your topic to my email. Wait, tomorrow or oh, okay. Please submit your topics, topic, project. Wait, sorry. Projects and groups. Groups by, okay, this is not tomorrow. I think by Sunday should be okay. Sunday, it's going to be, what date is today? What date is Sunday? 22nd. August 22nd. Send it to my email, so I will revise this as well. This is August 22nd. Okay. So everyone, you should choose your topics. And then after that, you choose what project you want to work and then submit to me by August 22nd. Okay, if you choose to work in group, submit the list of your group as well. Okay, submit it to my email. Is that clear? Any question?
Miss, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
For the topic, does it have to be really like specific, or is it just a general topic? So for example, we want a topic for education. Do we just email you that we want to do the project regarding education, or we have to choose like a specific one, like maybe like examining the effect of years of education on wage or anything like that?
Okay, thank you. Good question. So for the first week, I just want you to choose the topic. You don't need to get to the detail. But on the second week, so next week, I want you to go to the details. So in the meantime, just submit to me the topics that you choose. But in your homework next week, that's where you're going to break down the detail of your topics. Okay,
Okay, thank you, Miss.
you're welcome. You have any more question? Okay, it seems like you don't have a question regarding this. Then the next one is class rules. So we have a bit different policy regarding class rules than last year when you take my when you were in my class. So last year I told you that I do not take attendance, but unfortunately in this course I will take attendance. So it's kind of important because we are going to engage in a lot of discussion and we don't have exams. So that's why your attendance in this class is very important. Okay. So first of all, please read the syllabus carefully. There is a breakdown of the material and then some of the download link to papers, books, PDF, whatever it is that you need in this class. So please read the syllabus. And if you have something that you don't understand regarding the syllabus, you can send an email to me or you can ask me in class, it's okay. And then these are our rules. Please come to the class on time and you cannot leave the class during the two active session. So this is a little bit different. Yeah, actually, if we are not in the pandemic, if we are in class in person, usually in this course, we will have two active sessions. The first session is where the instructor explain the material, and the second session is where the student going to engage in discussion in groups. But because we are virtually meeting, we have daring ya dalam jaringan, we have Zoom meeting, so it's a bit difficult to have two active session. So I will conduct the material. I will, sorry, I will explain the slides and material to you on Zoom meeting. But for your discussion with your groups to discuss your project, you can do it outside of Zoom meeting. Okay. But while we have Zoom meeting, you cannot leave the Zoom meeting. Okay. And then the second rule is student must attend all lectures. There will be deduction of 10% of total grades per missed meeting. So if you miss one meeting, I will deduct your total grades for 10%. If you miss two meetings, I will deduct your grades for 20% and so on. The exception are for sick leave with official medical records emailed to me or to Pak Gumilang, it's okay. And the compassionate leave. So if your loved ones passed away, you can not coming to this class. Like for example, if your parents, grandparents, or siblings, or your spouse, or your children, then you are accepted. Okay, so those are the class rules. And then, oh, questions regarding class rules? Okay, if you don't have, okay, oh, I guess that's it for the introduction. If you have no question, I will continue with the material for our first week. So if you have question again, please tell me. Okay. 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 Let's go to our first material. Sorry. Okay, today we're going to discuss about impact evaluation. Have you guys taken microeconometrics, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sure you guys are familiar with impact evaluation. Most of the time we will discuss impact evaluation in this course, okay? So this is the outline. We're going to discuss evidence-based policymaking, what is impact evaluation, prospective versus retrospective impact evaluation, counterfactuals, potential outcome framework, and randomized evaluations. I'm not going to be very technical or mathematical in this course because that's where microeconometrics is going to be. We're going to talk about a lot of intuition and a lot of previous studies in this topic. Okay, so let's talk about the evidence-based policy making. So, what is policy? You can Google it, and if you Google it, you will find that the definition of policy is a course or principles of action adopted or proposed by government, party, business, or individual. So the keyword here is course of principle of action. And then if you find what policy is in Wikipedia, it's going to say policy is deliberate system of guidelines to guide decisions and achieve rational outcomes. A policy is a statement of intent and is implemented as a procedure or protocol. Okay, so basically policy is some kind of procedure, protocol, guidelines, and principle of action, right? So if we are going to be more practical with that, we can say that sometimes policy can be manifested into program, right? And sometimes, actually most of the time, we have a program to solve some problem, right? And if we have problem and then we apply a program into it, then usually it's called intervention. So what we are going to talk about in terms of policy here is the intervention. Okay. And then how can we formulate an appropriate policy? Well, there are some approach on how to formulate an appropriate policy. We can make a policy based on our opinion. It's called opinion-based policy making. So if you, for example, one day when you're going to have children, and then you're going to give them some ground rules, like for example, if you think it is best for your children to eat vegetables instead of chocolate, and then you have a policy in your household that we must not stock chocolates in our fridge. It should be only fruits and vegetables. And you make that policy based on what you think is best for your children. So that's a very simple example of opinion-based policy making. Okay, and do you think it really is the best formulated policy? Well, I would argue if the scope is very small, like a household, for example, sometimes opinion-based policy making might be non-problematic, right? But when it's in a huge scope, like in the nation, in a country, in a village, then maybe opinion-based policy making is not the best formula. In the bigger scope, the arguably better approach in formulating policy is evidence-based policy making. So this is where the policy is formulated based on the hard evidence or hard fact. Like for example, if you want to help children, poor children, for example, to go to school, and then you only think, oh, maybe it's because they don't have money to afford school, and then you just give them money. It might not be the best. It might not be the best policy because you do not try to find the hard evidence why they don't go to school. Maybe because the nearest school from their home is very far away. So the the better policy is to build school closer to their home instead of just give the money to afford school. Okay, so that's the example of evidence-based policy making. Okay, usually we would argue that this one is better in making policy than this one. Okay. And what is the most effective way? Oh, this is an example. For example, if we have problem with diarrhea among children, and then we want to formulate a policy, then we will ask what is the most effective way to reduce diarrhea among children. We can think about some ideas like, for example, water source protection or spring protection, and then source chlorine dispensers or home chlorine distribution, hand washing campaign, pipe waters, and others. It's good, right, that we have a lot of different ideas on how to solve problem. But the thing is, if we only gather a lot of idea without actually understand how the idea is going to impact the problem, then we might not be able to make the most optimum decision, right? So this is where the impact evaluation comes handy, because then for each of these good idea, we can evaluate whether it's the most optimum decision or not. Okay. Impact evaluation help us identify the effective of the programs. Like, for example, if you choose to do spring protection or water source protection, it shows that incidence of the diarrhea among children age 0 up to 3 decreased by 25%. But if we do the source chlorine, then the incidence of diarrhea decreased by 20 to 40%. Meanwhile, with the home chlorine distribution, the incidence of diarrhea decreased by 20 to 40%. And for the hand washing campaign, the incidence of diarrhea among children under 15 decreased by 53%. And last but not least, the pipe water. It shows that the impact is days of diarrhea decreased by 0.27 per children per week. Okay, so this impact evaluation, it will help us to identify the effective of the programs. If we know the effectiveness of the program or the impact of the program, then what we can do is we can either improve the program, or we can kind of choose which one is the most optimum option or most optimum program. Okay, there are a lot of things that you can do by doing impact evaluation. Okay. You can also do impact evaluation by checking the cost effectiveness of each program. So this, with this, we kind of identify the effectiveness of the program with the incidence of, wait a minute, with the incidence of diarrhea, right? And also the days of diarrhea. But we can also do impact evaluation based on cost effectiveness. Which evaluation is better? Is it better to just take a look at the independent variable, or is it better to just take a look at the cost? Well, it all depends. It all depends. What's the topic that you are most concerned, and what are your constraints in doing that program? So it's all depends. It's not the problem of which one is better, which one is worse, because it all depends. So these are the cost effectiveness based on different program. Okay. These are for the chlorine dispenser in the water source. This for the home chlorine. This is for the rinsing water source. This is for the, oh, this is also, oh, okay, this is in Kenya, this is in Pakistan. And this is the hand washing promotion. It seems like the most cost effective is this one, I guess. Yep. Okay. So before we go to the technical approach, you have any question? Not yet. Okay. I will continue for the impact evaluation. So in doing evaluation, okay. So in general, evaluation is a very broad terms, right? You can do evaluation of some policy in a very big scope, but the smaller scope is the program evaluation, and then the smaller scope is the impact evaluation. So we will focus in this one here how to. We're going to discuss about impact evaluation in this course. Okay. Impact evaluation seek to answer cause and effect question. Okay, if you remember when you learn statistics, when you learn econometrics, we always emphasize in this is not a causation, this is correlation. Okay, well, in the impact evaluation, this is where we're going to ask causation. Okay, so we want to focus and we want to answer the cause and effect question. Like, for example, what is the impact of a program on outcome interest? For example, here we have the impact of BSM on elementary school enrollment, and also the impact of Kartu Prakerja in youth employment rate. So we want to know the cause effect question here. The focus is on the impact. The focus is on the impact. And then we have prospective and retrospective impact evaluation. So what's the difference between prospective and retrospective impact evaluation? Retrospective evaluation assess program after the program has been implemented. So it's like before, after. This is where we look for treatment and control groups exposed. So if we have control group, we have treatment group, we want to see how their well-being or the outcome is after the program is finished. Example is the school construction program in Indonesia. That's a very, very popular paper by Esther Duflo, 2001. I'm pretty sure you are familiar with that. And then on the other hand, the prospective evaluation are developed at the same time as the program is being designed. Okay, so this is not the before after. You develop the evaluation while the program is being designed, and it is integrated into program implementation. So while the program is still ongoing, then the evaluation is also ongoing. We also have treatment and control groups in here. And the example is the Generasi program. It's a paper by Olken, Oishi, and Wong, 2014. Okay, if you are curious about both paper, you can check those paper after the class. Okay. Okay, those are prospective and retrospective impact evaluation. We are not going to discuss the detail of both for this week. Okay, so if you are curious, please wait until the few following weeks. We will talk about this more in detail. And then the next one is designing a program. This is just a glimpse of designing a program, not very detailed yet. So in designing a program or a policy, you will need at least three parts. The first one is the needs assessment or problem identification. Remember, this is one of the project option. And then you will need theory of change, and you will need evaluation design. Okay. So the first one, the needs assessment or problem identification. So this is where you assess a problem, where you identify a problem. So for example, the case study of diarrhea problem among children in poor countries. You can identify problem by asking questions. Like for example, this main question, does the problem exist? And what is the source of the problem? Okay. Does the problem exist? Well, to answer this question, you have to find evidence whether the problem exists or not. You can find evidence by either you do literature review or desk study, or you do field study when you go to the field and then you do you try to gather data in the field. Usually, if is I'm sorry. Usually, if the problem is very common, you can find the evidence of the problem by only doing a desk study or literature study. Like for example, this diarrhea problem. Some of the evidence that the problem exists is the casualties of the diarrhea problem is 2.6 million people a year between 1990 and 2000. And among children under 5, 20% of all deaths are caused by diarrhea. And diarrhea leads to severe dehydration. This hard evidence, these are the kind of hard evidence that you can find from doing literature review or desk study. Literature review or desk study. Okay. So you can either do literature review or desk study. You can also do field work. If you want to identify something that is very specific or in a very small scope, then you can do field work. Okay. And then the next one is you try to identify the source of the problem. Like for example, here, it seems like the source of the problem is access to clean water. Here, clean water is quite scarce or rare in the area where diarrhea is an epidemic. And then you identify other source of problem, like for example, hygiene is very important. And then nearly 2.6 billion people lack of any improved sanitation policies, hygiene sanitation policy, and then people are willing to pay for convenient water than clean water. And then chlorine is cheap, but maybe not everyone wants to use chlorine. Maybe there is a misinformation about chlorine. In this part, it kind of reminds me, like for example, in this pandemic and COVID-19 problem, that one of the option that we can take to fight the pandemic is vaccine, right? But there are a lot of misinformation about vaccine. So even though vaccine is free, it doesn't magically solve the problem because there are a lot of misinformation. So not everyone wants to be vaccinated. So the chlorine here is quite similar problem. Okay, so that's an example of how you identify the source of the problem. So this basically the main source. This is the main source, like of clean water, and then this is the other source of problem. When you identify source of the problem, you can also do literature study. You can also do field work. It depends on the topic and depends on your resource as well. Okay. And then after you identify whether the problem exists, and then you identify the source of the problem, the next one is try to come up with potential solutions. Like for example, the solution that we have here is make sure that access for clean water exists in the places where the diarrhea is epidemic. And then other potential solutions is by building proper toilet and also hand washing campaign and also the chlorine, So those are the potential solutions. After you have potential solutions, this is the further explanation for the needs assessment. So when you identify problem, when you assess a problem, you have to first define the problem, and then when you do, you have to consider how the demand side, the demand side, I'm sorry, how the demand side perceive the problem and how the supply side perceive the problem. Okay, like for example, with the diarrhea problem, how are the people perceive the diarrhea problem, and how are the supply side perceive the problem. Okay, and then after that, you will move to theory of change. So what's theory of change? Theory of change is a description on how an intervention is supposed to deliver the desired result. It is the causal logic of how and why a particular program, program modality, or design innovation will reach its intended outcomes. I think we have talked about this during development one. So if you kind of forget what's the long definition of theory of change, then please open your Todaro textbook. I think it's there. Okay. So basically, this is where you're going to explain the theory of change. Theory of change. So why we need theory of change? Because we need explanation. You cannot just propose a programs and then guarantee that the outcomes is going to be great. You have to explain why the programs have potential to have great outcomes. That's where the black box is. That's where the theory of change is. Okay. So the theory of change and process evaluation. So these are some of the these are some of the way you can explain theory of change. You can explain, is the program implemented as planned? Like for example, is the intervention? Oh, sorry. I think I didn't explain it well. So after the theory of change, where you're going to explain how the program is supposed to have great outcomes, you will have process evaluation, right? So this is where we have benang merah. I cannot find a very good terms with for that. So this is where the theory of change is going to relate it with the process evaluation. In the process evaluation, you can ask, is the program implemented as planned? Like for example, is the intervention implemented as designed? And does the intervention reach the target population? These two are the kind of question you're going to ask when you do process evaluation. Okay, there are a lot of other questions you can ask, but these two questions are example. And then process evaluation help us understand why and how a program affect outcomes. Okay. When you do a process evaluation, it can be descriptive, it can be mathematics. You know what I mean by mathematics. With the descriptive, you can just describe how the intervention is implemented. But with the mathematical evaluation, you can, like for example, see the difference in terms of quantitative variable. Like for example, if you go for income as the goal of your policy, then you can check the difference between income before the program and then income after the program. Or maybe you want to go whether or not after BSM, for example, whether or not the children go to school, or if you go for the number of hospital visit, whether how often they go to hospital and things like that. So this evaluation, it can be descriptive, it can be more quantitative. It can be qualitative, it can be quantitative. That's a better way to word it. Okay, after this part, do you have any question for me?
So far, so good from me, Miss.
Okay, so far so good. So far so good for me as well. The next one is the impact evaluation method. We will go a little bit with the technical here, but just a little bit, don't worry. So this is the basic evaluation problem. Suppose, this is an example, suppose that we would like to investigate the effects of a program on an outcome Y. Okay, so if you want to do evaluation, make sure you know what outcome you want to identify. Okay, for example, the program that we're going to evaluate here is PSM, and the outcome, do we have outcome here? Okay, and the outcome, like for example, the outcome is Y, and then we run a regression of the following specification, where Y equals alpha plus beta PSMI plus gamma XI plus EI, where the PSM here, this is a dummy variable, whether an individual participated in the BSM program or not. So if it equals 1, then the individual receive PSM. If it equals to 0, then the individual doesn't receive PSM. And Y here, it doesn't define what Y is here. Let's just say Y is their UN score, for example. We still have UN, right? For school children, I have no idea. So like, for example, this is their score for graduation. And then we want to see how this PSM affect their score, okay? So we have this regression here to evaluate the effect of the PSM. Well, the model is pretty solid, right? We have dependent variable, UN score, and then we have alpha plus beta BSM plus gamma XI, where XI is individual characteristic, like for example, their parents' income or their I don't know other characteristic, and then E is error. You already know that. What do you think is going to be the problem here? Do you think this is a good model to evaluate the BSM program? Please let me know if you have any opinion you want to share with me.
I think it's endogeneity.
Okay, very good. So endogeneity. Can you define to me what endogeneity is?
The main explanatory variable might be correlated with the unobservables.
Okay, which explanatory variable that you mean here?
The BSM.
Okay, very good. So your answer is correct, yeah. This model has a problem called endogeneity problem. So what do we mean by endogeneity problem? Oh, before I go to that, this is a basic evaluation problem before we go to the endogeneity stuff. So we have purposive program placement, right? Programs are designed according to the need of the communities. And then individuals, they will self-select based on the program design and placement. Like for example, BSM, Bantuan Siswa Miskin. So the people that feels like, oh, I need this Bantuan Siswa Miskin, then they will go to assign themselves to the program, right? Well, with the self-selection into the program, then we have some problem here. Those people who go to the program, who receive the program, they have observable characteristic, but they also have unobservable characteristic of the factors. Well, we are going to be concerned with the second one here, because this is the root of a problem that we call endogeneity problem that your friend just explained. So because we have the unobservable variable like motivation and ability, so this unobservable variable, they will affect the outcome. They will affect the UN score, right? Students' motivation, students' ability, they are very unobservable, but they will affect the outcome. And this characteristic will be caught in the error terms, right? Oops, error terms or IE. And these error terms will be correlated with whether or not individual participate in BSM. So your answer is correct. Error will be correlated. Oh, I don't need to rewrite it. We have it here. So the error is going to be correlated with the BSM variable. So thus we will have a problem called endogeneity. Endogeneity. uh, I don't know how to spell it. Can you help me spell endogeneity? Endogeneity, is this correct?
I think it's correct, Miss.
Okay, it's correct. So we
Yeah.
have this problem called endogeneity, where the error terms is correlated with the explanatory variable. And the consequence is we will have bias, yeah, bias result. So when you want to evaluate a program, this model is not ideal, yeah, karena we have endogeneity problem. So what should we do? Okay, let's talk about what should we do next. Okay, one of the things that we can do to overcome this problem is we're going to wait. Okay, I will continue in here. So this is the potential outcome framework to overcome the problem that we just discussed, that is endogeneity. So let's formalize this line of thoughts. So for example, the BSM status here, whether someone enroll in BSM or not, let's call it the DI or the dummy variable. This is the binary random variable that describe the treatment. The treatment is the BSM, for example, and the outcome of interest is Y. So one of the way to overcome the endogeneity problem is ideally we would want each individual to have two potential outcomes. So their outcomes when they receive BSM and their outcomes when they do not receive BSM. So like for example, Amanda is a high school student and then Amanda received BSM. Ideally, to evaluate the BSM project, we want to know how Amanda's UN score without BSM and how Amanda's UN score with BSM. Okay, if we have that data, then we will overcome the endogeneity problem, right? These are the paper that talk about it if you are curious. So this is the potential outcome framework. Individual A, individual B, C, D, and E. If they receive treatment, then their outcome is 10. If not receive treatment, their outcome is 7. Individual B, receive treatment 8, not receive treatment 5. If we know the difference between this outcome, then we can identify the treatment effects, right? So 10 minus 7 is 3. That's the treatment effect. 8 minus 5, 3, that's the treatment effect. So this is the difference between two potential outcomes. So it looks good, right? It's pretty solid. If we can do this framework, then we will not have a problem with our impact evaluation. But what's the problem with that framework? Can some of you, can one of you tell me what's the problem with that framework? Hello, guys. What do you think is the problem with the framework? Oops. Oh, sorry. Okay. Let me reshare my screen. So there is one fundamental problem with the framework. The problem is when an individual receive treatment, like for example, individual B here, when B receive treatment, then we can only identify the outcome where B receive treatment. We don't know what's going to happen if to B when B doesn't receive treatment. When individual A, for example, do not receive treatment, then we have no idea how the outcome of that person is going to be when they receive treatment. So we cannot identify the treatment effect for each individual, right? Because we have no idea. There is no two state of the world. We only have one state of the world. Either this person receive treatment or this person do not receive treatment. Okay. So this is what we call the problem of there is no counterfactual. There is no parallel world. When Amanda receive PSM, then there is no state of the world when Amanda do not receive PSM. When Amanda do not receive PSM, then there is no state of the world when Amanda do not receive PSM. Okay. Therefore, we can only proceed by comparing those who received the treatment and those who didn't. Okay. So that's why when we do impact evaluation, we want to compare those people who receive PSM and those people who do not receive PSM. Okay. This problem that I described in this slide, it's called the missing data problem. Okay. This is the missing data problem. So because we have no counterfactuals, what can we do? We have to build our own counterfactual. Okay. We need to identify a treatment and comparison. Oops, sorry. Treatment and comparison group that are statistically identical in the absence of the program. So because when one person receives treatment, there is no state of the world when they don't receive treatment. So what can we do is we're going to compare those who receive treatment and those who do not receive treatment. Those who receive treatment is called the treatment group, and those who do not is called the control group. And the requirement for these groups are they have to be statistically identical in the absence of the program. So like, for example, if we want to evaluate the BSM, then a group of students who are in the treatment group and group of students who are in the control group, they have to be very identical. When there is no BSM, they have to be identical. Like, for example, their economic ability or their family income is going to be pretty similar, and then their other observable characteristic has to be similar. Okay, so that way, when there is a change in the UN score, it's going to be only because of the BSM. Okay, if there is no BSM, then we can assume that the average of their UN score is going to be similar. So that's what we want to do. That's the requirement of the treatment group and the control group. And then here we are moving from individual level to the group level. Okay. Now we compare group instead of individual. We can rely on statistical properties to generate two groups that, if the numbers are large enough, the two groups are statistically indistinguishable. Okay, so this is the law of large numbers, yeah. If you have very large number of sample in your impact evaluation here, then it's going to be statistically indistinguishable between two groups. Okay. And then other way, we can build a very ideal, not very ideal, but other way to build ideal treatment group and control group is by doing randomized evaluation. This is the gold standard of impact evaluation. The golden standard to address this problem is random assignment. Basically, if we randomly assign individuals to enroll in the treatment, then the probability of that person is chosen to receive the treatment is random. Then it will it will solve the problem of this, the statistically identical in the absence of the program. Okay. And then randomized evaluation, identify a valid comparison group, because the average characteristic of the treatment and comparison group must be identical in the absence of the program. Treatment and comparison group. The treatment group should not affect the comparison group, and then the comparison group would react to the program the same way as the treatment group. Okay. Oh, that's it. Okay. I guess that's all the material that I have today. Do you have questions regarding randomized evaluation? Okay, when you do randomized evaluation, I wish I could copy this. Wait, let me, how do I, oh, I can do this actually. Please, nope. Oh, yeah. Let me, okay. Actually, let me stop share for a while. Let me add one slide in the end to help you understand. Please bear with me. Okay. Oops, where is my Zoom? Here it is. Okay, so after we do randomized evaluation, then we can compare. So this is the treatment group. Oops, sorry. This is the treatment group. This is the control group. So what we do is we are going to compare the outcome of treatment group and the outcome of control group. Then we can find the treatment effect. Like for example, the individual for the treatment group is individual A, and the individual for the control group, like for example, this is X, this is wait a minute. Whatever lah. For example, the individual for the treatment group is individual A, and in the control group it's individual U, and then individual in the treatment group is A, in the control group is T. Then what we're going to do is we're going to compare the outcome of these two groups, right? The outcome of this group and the outcome of this group. And then that way we can find the treatment effect. Okay, this is when we're going to have randomized control trial. Okay, so that's it for the material. You have any question for me? Okay. Okay, if you have no question for me, I will stop share my screen. And then what should we do? Okay, I will check your attendance. Okay. Okay, I guess that's it from me. If you have no question, I will end this meeting, and please do not forget to submit your chosen topic to my email. If you are going to work in groups, please list the member of your group and then what your chosen projects are. And do not forget you have assignment in semester. Okay. Okay, then I will close. Okay, I will close this session. Thank you very much. See you next week. Bye bye.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Miss.
you, Miss.
You, Miss.
Thank you, Miss.
Have a great day.